Communication is an essential requirement of our day-to-day life. We are constantly in need of transmitting our thoughts, feelings, ideas, opinions and requirements to others and vice versa. It will be difficult to find an engineer, an executive, a teacher, a scientist, or perhaps anyone else who is not required to communicate with others either within or outside the organization. All of us have felt time and again how we could communicate more effectively or wished that others communicated in a better way. But this can only be possible if communication skills are developed systematically. These skills do not come naturally and are seldom inherited. They have to be developed by the concerted efforts of the individual. This film aims at creating an awareness about the process of communication and deals with the basics of improving communication skills. Communication is a process of imparting information through speech, movement, or a gesture. It is an art of getting through to people. Each day, every one of us has to interact with a lot of people. From the time we wake up in the morning, we interact with many persons: wife, children, boss, shopkeeper, and many others. Each day we are involved in conversations, rejoicing, giving and receiving orders, expressing concern, tenderness, and even annoyance.
Please get it out of there.
Our daily contact with other people consists of communicating ideas and feelings. Sometimes we are able to convey our message properly, but often we cannot communicate effectively. If the communication is not effective, then it can lead to unpleasant consequences and situations. It results in misunderstanding.
Sujata, surprise! Sujata?
मैं कब से तुम्हारा इंतजार कर रही थी। कहाँ थे इतने दिन? तुम्हारा भी जवाब नहीं।
कौन है वो?
Emotional upset, animosity, and even undesirable behavior. Effective communication is, therefore, of paramount importance. Communication is the means by which people work together to achieve a common goal through mutual influence and interaction. Communication certainly enhances productivity through better teamwork. Communication means getting across ideas and information from another person. Communication originates from an individual and is transmitted to another person, who receives it and acknowledges it. Thus, in communication, there is a sender, a receiver, and a message being communicated. The sender might use a signal, an action, spoken or written words. All communications can be classified into two broad categories: one-way and two-way. They refer to the presence or absence of the facility to seek reactions, information, and clarification. One-way communication denies the facility to seek clarification, confirmation, etc. communication, on the other hand, has an inbuilt system and feedback. In order to understand the process of communication, a model will be helpful. There are 6 steps in the process of communication. They are formulation of the message, encoding of the message, transmission of the message, decoding the message, action or response, and feedback. A good message formulated should have brevity, clarity, and spontaneity. All communication starts with ideas or messages. The sender formulates an idea in his brain to be transmitted to an audience. The internal shaping, sorting, and sifting of ideas is called message formulation. The purpose of message formulation is to create clear and meaningful messages that should be understood by the receiver or the audience. The formulated ideas are converted into a form that can be transmitted to receivers. The purpose here is to represent ideas in an appropriate language which may assume the verbal, symbolic, or diagrammatic form. The message is transferred choosing an appropriate mode or channel of presentation. The channel may be auditory, visual, kinesthetic, or a combination of all these. Spoken language is an essential form of verbal communication. The various aspects of verbal communication are voice, fluency, difficulty level, pronunciation, modulated voice, pauses, and power. If the voice is not audible, the audience will feel disinterested and unattentive. In order to facilitate interest and attention, the voice of the speaker should be clear and audible. Similarly, shouting should be avoided. But there are certain situations which warrant shouting. The flow of information in suitable chunks at a speed at which the listener can absorb the message is called fluency. Fluency differs in different communication situations. If the speaker speaks faster or slower than the rate of comprehension, the listeners will feel bored and become restless.
Hello, Mr. Malhotra. Please bring vernacular expression design file.
What, sir?
Please bring vernacular expression design file.
Which file, sir? I'm not getting you, sir.
The level of comprehension of the listeners should therefore be kept in mind while speaking. The use of such difficult and bombastic words, phrases, or jargon is to be avoided. It helps an individual to communicate better and effectively. Correct pronunciation of words is equally important. Use lips and tongue to form the words. However, this should be done comfortably and naturally. Vary the pitch and modulate the voice. It helps you in attracting attention of the audience and brings home a point.
They can withstand even freezing temperatures. They can withstand temperatures up to even 80.
Fluency is closely related to the pauses that one makes in communication. A person who is continually pausing with vocalizations such as and ah is distressing and can destroy the effectiveness of communication. A pause can enhance a verbal message if it is used selectively for emphasis, and variation. We must give our listeners time to collect and digest a statement. A pause, say of 4 seconds, is most appropriate. Not only this, varying the power of voice can have surprisingly more influence and desired effect on the listeners. Apart from verbal communication, in which language and speech are the principal vehicles, communication can be established through gestures, eye contact, and posture. An experienced speaker makes optimal use of gestures for communication. A shrug, a quizzical glance, lifting of an eyebrow, all convey some pattern of communication, inviting audience participation, thereby helping to infect and share their enthusiasm. The face is the index to the mind. While speaking, the face should reflect the feelings. A smiling face puts the listener in a relaxed position, but a sad and frowning face evokes a similar response. Hands are very powerful means of communication medium. They must be made to move animatedly above the stomach level. As long as they are kept below stomach level, they remain powerless to influence and enthuse the audience. Choice of hand movements, therefore, should be spontaneous and not labored. Addressing a group of half a dozen or more people, the forearm or even the whole arm needs to move to have an equal influence. In an audience consisting of 100 or more people, the movement of the hands should be wide enough. Eye contact is another very important weapon in communication. A direct eye contact between speaker and the audience is an essential part of personal interaction. A shared glance of about 1 second duration is appropriate. However, if you exceed this duration of glance, it can be embarrassing to both the parties. Continually, the speaker should have eye contact with his listeners. As a good communicator, he should ensure repeated eye contact with each and every listener or with a section of his audience. His words, gestures, postures all flow. They become as natural in a dialogue responding to the mood, reaction of his audience. A bad communicator is one who has poor eye contact and does not use this very effective communication tool. He would worry about the words he uses. He either talks to the ceiling or to the floor and constantly goes within himself for fresh thoughts. An effective communicator should also be aware of the effects and appropriate use of posture. He should attempt to communicate effectively by using a normal, relaxed posture that suggests confidence and interest in both the topic as well as the audience. An effective communicator will always stand upright and never bend while communicating with others. There are many subtle and not so subtle movements that people make while talking, discussing, addressing, or interacting with others. We must therefore be careful and not stand still in one place. Move about a little within a radius of a yard or so. This will certainly generate confidence in the audience. At the same time, one must always be cautious that if you move up and down frantically, you become a source of distraction. So, by now you must have observed that we can communicate without using words. To recall, we use hands, eyes, expressions, etc. as modes of communication. 7% of our communication is vocal, 38% of it is verbal, and a gaping 55% of our communication is through visuals. Sender always expects an action and feedback from the receiver to ensure that the message has been understood.
Right construction of the eyes and spoorling better. If you have any question, you can ask.
Excuse me, sir. So you
Feedback initiates a new communication that passes through all the steps, thereby completing a communication circuit. Thus, we observe that the communication process is cyclic and continuous.